a program folded in half, a name printed in gold, a birth certificate filled out from a hospital bed. The kitchen ran on other people's schedules. Wren Coulter stood at the sink at 36 weeks pregnant, rinsing a casserole dish that had arrived with a note reading for the happy grandmother. She set the note face down on the counter. The oven timer beeped. She turned it off without checking what was inside. The house smelled like rosemary and someone else's plans. Her husband Amaro was a physical therapist with careful questions. He came home that evening with a grocery bag and a look Wren had learned to read. His mother had called him 3 times. He set the bag down and said, "She wants to know what we're naming him." Wren said, "We told her we were waiting." Amaro nodded. He did not say he had told her again. Renata Lentz lived 20 minutes north in a 3-bedroom ranch with a piano nobody played. On the piano sat a framed photograph of her late husband Harold in a Navy uniform. Every visit, Renata tilted the frame a 1/4 inch and said, "He would have loved this." She said it now to the sonogram photo she had taped to the side of the frame without asking. Wren had married Amaro 3 years before in a courthouse ceremony. Renata had cried through the reception and told the waiter her son had eloped. The waiter had nodded politely. Wren had heard the whole sentence from 2 tables away. She did not correct it then. She did not correct it now. The nursery was small, pale green walls. A white crib Amaro had assembled one Saturday with a pencil behind his ear. Renata had delivered a brass plaque engraved with Harold James Lentz II and a note reading for when you change your mind. The plaque sat in a drawer. Wren had not thrown it away. She wanted to remember where it had come from. Amaro's pattern with his mother was an old one. He handled her the way a physical therapist handled a sore rotator cuff. Small movements, never all the way through the range of motion. Wren had loved this about him when they were dating. She had married a man who could manage anyone in a room. She had not asked what happened when the person in the room was her. Renata attended St. Bartholomew's Fellowship Church every Sunday and served on the hospitality committee. She had printed the bulletins for 14 years. She typed the prayer list with the names in order of seniority. She knew which women at the coffee hour would ask about her grandson and which would only nod. She had rehearsed her answer since the sonogram. Wren worked as a research librarian at the public branch on Vestry Street. On her last Friday before maternity leave, her co-workers held a small party with a cake that spelled her name wrong. She laughed. She took a photograph for Amaro. She did not know that at the same hour 40 miles away, Renata was at the printer's office choosing a gold foil font for something Wren had never approved. Labor started at 2:14 a.m. on a Sunday. Wren remembered the number because she looked at the clock twice. Amaro drove with both hands at 10 and 2. He spoke in short sentences. He said, "You're doing great." He said, "Traffic is light." He said nothing about his mother. His phone buzzed on the console. He turned it face down without looking. At 7:03 a.m., Wren held her son for the first time. He was heavier than she had expected. He had Amaro's dark hair in a whorl at the crown. She did not cry. She said his name quietly into the blanket and put it away like a coin into her pocket. The name was not Harold. It was not James. It was a name she and Amaro had agreed on 3 weeks earlier, written on a slip in her wallet. Renata arrived at St. Bartholomew's at 9:47 a.m. that same Sunday. She carried 2 boxes of freshly printed programs, each cover bearing a small gold cross and the words welcoming Harold James Lentz II into the family of God. Below the words was the taped sonogram. She had paid $84 herself. The invoice was in her handbag and she had already decided it was worth every penny. The hospitality committee received the programs without asking who had approved the name. Renata set the boxes on the table by the bulletin and opened the top flap. Colette Mirren, a first-grade teacher new to the parish, picked up a program and read the cover. She looked at Renata. She said, "Is the family here today?" Renata smiled with too many teeth and said, "They are at the hospital. We are celebrating in their honor." The pastor read the name during the prayers of the people. He said, "We lift up Harold James Lentz II, a new life arriving into our family." The congregation murmured amen. Colette did not say amen. She folded her program in half and put it into her purse. After the service, she walked to the fellowship hall coffee urn and did not say anything at all. She took 3 programs home with her. Wren learned about the program at 1:20 p.m. Amaro's cousin Mara had texted him a picture of the cover with 3 question marks. Amaro turned the phone screen toward Wren from the bedside chair. She read it 3 times. She did not speak for a full minute. Then she said, "Bring me the folder the nurse left this morning." He brought it. Inside was the birth certificate worksheet. A blue pen was clipped to the corner. Wren had thought about her own father that morning. Paul Coulter had raised her after her mother left. He had taught her to drive on icy roads. He had told her once the right move was usually the quiet one. He had died of a stroke 4 years before the wedding. She had kept his surname on a folded slip in the back of her wallet. Behind the first name she and Amaro had chosen, she filled out the birth certificate worksheet in her own handwriting. She wrote the first name she and Amaro had chosen. She wrote Coulter-Lentz for the surname. Her left hand rested on the baby's back as she wrote. Amaro read the sheet upside down from the chair and nodded. He said, "Good." The nurse took the sheet at 2:40 p.m. and slid it into a plastic file. Wren watched the file slide into the rolling cart. Amaro called his mother at 4:05 p.m. Wren did not listen. She kept her eyes on the baby's eyelashes. She heard her husband say, "You should not have printed anything." She heard him say, "His name is not Harold." She heard a pause. Then, "Mom, that is not your decision." Then he hung up. He did not apologize to the dial tone. He did not apologize later. Renata did not call back. She went to the kitchen. She made a pot of tea. She stood at the counter with the box of programs, still open on the table, and drank the tea standing. Then she wrote an email to the hospitality committee saying there had been a small confusion with the name. She said she would bring corrected programs next Sunday. She did not yet know there would be no christening to announce. The baby came home on a Tuesday. Amaro carried the car seat into the nursery and set it in front of the crib. Wren sat in the rocking chair for the first time. The green walls looked the way she had imagined. The monogrammed blanket from Renata was folded on the changing table. Wren looked at it. She picked it up with 2 fingers and put it back into the gift bag it had come in. Wren kept a notebook in her nightstand. On the Tuesday they brought the baby home. She opened it to a new page and wrote 3 things. Return gifts marked with the wrong name. Write the christening guest list ourselves. Do not engage on the phone. She closed the notebook and put it back in the drawer. She slept for 2 hours. The baby slept in the bassinet beside her. Renata arrived Wednesday morning without calling ahead. She rang the doorbell 3 times. Amaro answered. She pushed past him with a large canvas tote full of boxes. She set the tote on the living room floor. Inside were 6 monogrammed bibs, a silver spoon engraved with Harold James 2 knitted caps, and a leather baby book with the name embossed in gold. She said, "I brought a few things for my grandson." Amaro told her the name. He said it slowly. He said, "His name is on the birth certificate and it is not Harold." Renata looked at the tote bag. She said, "You are being cruel to your father's memory." Amaro said, "My father loved Wren. He would have loved his grandson regardless of what we called him." Renata picked up the silver spoon and weighed it on her palm. Then she set it back and left without the bag. Colette Mirren found Wren on the library's public email the next week. Colette had been given the address at the Christmas staff mixer the year before. She wrote a short note. She said, "I was at St. Bartholomew's on Sunday. I have the programs. If you want them, I can drop them at the branch. I am not asking for anything in return." She signed it with her phone number. Wren replied with 2 sentences. "Thank you. I would like to see them." Colette delivered 3 programs to the branch reference desk 2 days later, wrapped in a plain manila envelope. She did not sit. She said, "I am sorry this happened." Then she left. Wren put the envelope into her work bag without opening it and brought it home. She opened it at the kitchen table after the baby was asleep. The programs were thicker than she had expected. Gold foil on the cover. The sonogram reprinted on the inside flap. The name Harold James Lentz II in 3 places. Wren read the whole program start to finish. She folded it closed and set it at the center of the table. She took a photograph of the cover. She sent it to Amaro with no caption. He replied with a single word. He wrote, "Saved." Amaro and Wren talked on the porch that night with the monitor between them. They made 3 decisions. A christening would be at a different church. The guest list would be theirs. His mother would not be uninvited publicly. She would simply not be invited. Amaro would tell her in person. She believed him. Amaro drove to his mother's house on Saturday morning. Wren stayed home. She sat on the nursery floor and sorted the gifts Renata had delivered. The monogrammed bibs went into a gift bag, the silver spoon into its velvet box, the leather baby book into its cardboard sleeve. She printed return labels at the desk. She did not rush. She did not slam anything. She folded tissue paper carefully. Amaro's conversation with his mother lasted 11 minutes. Wren knew because she watched the dashboard clock when he returned. He came inside and put the car keys on the counter. He said, "She will not come to the christening." He said, "She called you a climber." Wren said nothing. She went to the sink and rinsed a teacup twice even though it was already clean. That was how Amaro knew she had heard. Renata sat alone in her living room that afternoon. The piano still had Harold's photograph on it. The sonogram was still taped to the frame. She tried to call her son twice. Both went to voicemail. She left one message, 19 seconds long. She did not cry in it. She said, "You are letting a woman turn you against your own family." Then she ended the call. She did not leave a second message. The christening was at St. Marguerite's, a small white church 3 towns over. 12 people attended. Wren's co-worker from the library read the passage. Amaro's cousin Mora was the godmother. Amaro's uncle was the godfather. Wren's father's old colleague Desmond Ahern, a comedy club owner who had been her father's closest friend, stood at the back in a clean black hoodie and did not speak. The baby did not cry. Renata learned about the christening on Facebook. Mora had posted a single photograph of the baby in a white gown with no caption. Renata saw it on her phone at 8:47 p.m. on a Sunday. She was alone in the kitchen. The phone was propped against the toaster. She set down her fork. A plate of reheated pasta cooled in front of her. She did not take another bite. Renata did not sleep well that night. She woke at 4:12 a.m. and walked into her kitchen in her robe. The kettle was on the stove from earlier. She had forgotten to turn it off. The water had long since boiled away. The bottom of the kettle had a faint black ring. She stared at it for a long time. Then she turned off the burner. She did not make a new pot. The hospitality committee meeting at St. Bartholomew's was held the following Tuesday in the fellowship hall. Colette Mirren did not bring up the program. She did not have to. Another member asked Renata gently how the christening had gone. Renata said, "We did not attend." The member said, "Oh." There was a pause. Renata said, "They did a small thing privately." The pause after that lasted longer. The table moved on. Wren went back to work part-time when the baby was 10 weeks old. Her co-workers asked to see pictures. She showed them 3. They asked his name. She said it aloud for the first time in a public setting. It came out of her mouth easy and clean. A co-worker said, "That is a beautiful name." Wren said thank you. She did not add anything else. She did not need to. On Thursday afternoon, Wren met Colette for a short coffee on Vestry Street. Wren thanked her for the programs. She said, "You did not have to." Colette said, "I taught first grade for 9 years. I know what it looks like when an adult decides a child's name is an accessory." Wren laughed once, without warmth. Colette said, "The tea is on me." Wren let her pay. Renata paid the printer's final invoice on a Wednesday. The original run of programs had been $84. The corrected batch she had ordered in a panic had been another $120. She had also paid for a custom banner that never hung. The banner sat rolled in her hall closet. She had not thrown it out. She walked past it every morning on her way to the kitchen. Over the next month, Renata returned $4,162 of baby gear to the stores where she had bought it. She had saved every receipt. She insisted on cash refunds. She returned the silver spoon. She returned the leather baby book. She returned the knitted caps. The cashier did not make eye contact during the second visit. By the third visit, the manager handled it herself. Wren did not know the dollar amount. She knew only that no more packages arrived. She noticed one Saturday that the gift bag of monogrammed bibs had sat in the nursery corner for 3 weeks. She carried it to the front porch for Amaro to take. He took it without asking where it was going. He drove it to a donation center 40 minutes away so nobody his mother knew would see. Renata tried a new tactic in October. A handwritten letter. 3 pages. She addressed it to both Amaro and Wren. She said she had been grieving Harold for 14 years. She said the name was the only thing she had left of him. She said she had never meant to hurt anyone. She put the letter into a cream envelope and mailed it. She walked back from the mailbox thinking she had been brave. The letter arrived Friday. Wren opened it at the kitchen table alone. She read it twice. The baby slept in a bouncer on the floor beside her. The clock on the microwave said 2:41 p.m. Wren did not cry. She did not tear the letter. She folded it back along its original creases and slid it into a manila folder labeled in her own handwriting. The label said correspondence. She did not open it again. Wren did not reply to the letter. Neither did Amaro. They had agreed the weekend before that a reply would invite another letter. Silence would not. Amaro stopped answering the phone when his mother called. He did not block her. He let the calls go to voicemail. After a week, he stopped listening at all. He simply deleted each message when it arrived. The holidays came. Renata invited them to Thanksgiving. Amaro replied by text with a single line, "We will not be coming." He did not apologize. He did not soften it. Renata called 3 times that evening. Amaro did not answer. Wren made roast chicken at home. She set the table for 2 adults and a high chair. The high chair was new. It had no monogram. Renata hosted Thanksgiving alone that year. Her cousin canceled at the last minute with a cold. Her neighbor stopped by for 40 minutes. Renata served turkey for 4 to an empty dining room. She wrapped the leftovers in foil and stacked them in the fridge. 7 containers. She did not open the good wine. The piano with Harold's photograph sat in the next room with the door closed. Renata opened the fridge that night for water. She stood in front of it longer than she meant to. 3 condiment bottles. Half a loaf of sandwich bread. The 7 foil-wrapped containers stacked like blocks. A carton of milk passed its date. She took out the milk and poured it down the sink. The rest she left. She closed the fridge. She did not eat anything else. December arrived. Wren and Amaro bought a small live tree from a lot 3 blocks from the house. They carried it home together. Amaro held the top. Wren held the bottom. The baby watched from his stroller. They strung one set of lights. Wren hung a small wooden bird her father had carved for her when she was 9. Amaro hung his grandfather's tin angel, the one Harold had loved. Renata put up a 3-foot artificial tree in her living room. She did not string lights on it. She placed a single wrapped gift beneath it. It was a small wooden rocking horse she had ordered custom with the name Harold James carved along the side. She had not returned it. She was not sure why. She did not plan to give it. She did not plan to keep it. She simply did not move it. Renata went to church on Christmas Eve. The fellowship hall afterward was crowded. Several women who had once sought her out at coffee hour now stood in small circles that closed before she could step in. She noticed the closing. Colette Mirren was there with a quiet husband. Colette nodded at Renata politely across the room. The nod did not invite her over. Renata left before the second service. The baby's first Christmas morning happened in the Coulter Lentz nursery at 8:20 a.m. He did not understand the tree. He patted the wrapping paper. He laughed at the sound of the bow. Wren recorded 90 seconds of video on her phone. Amaro held the baby's hand to help him open a small cloth book. Wren did not send the video to Renata. Nobody asked her to. Renata woke at 6:40 a.m. on Christmas morning. She made coffee. She drank it standing at the counter. She scrolled through 4 years of photographs on her phone in the low light. She stopped on a picture of Amaro at 12 at the piano with Harold. She stared at it for a long time. Then she put the phone face down and went to shower. The coffee went cold in the cup. In January, Renata wrote one more letter. 1 page. She said she would like to see the baby. She said she had been wrong to print the programs. She did not say what she had been wrong about exactly. She mailed it Tuesday. It arrived Thursday. Wren opened it at the kitchen table. She read it once. She slid it into the same manila folder as the first. The folder was getting thicker. Wren did not reply to the second letter either. She spoke to Amaro about it on the porch. She said, "She is not sorry yet. She is sorry that we are absent." Amaro said, "I know." Wren said, "I am not cruel. I am just not ready." He said, "You do not owe ready on her timeline." The monitor between them glowed blue. Colette Mirren invited Wren to a school fundraiser in February. It was held in the fellowship hall of a different church, 3 blocks from Bellhaven Elementary. Wren attended because the money went to a family whose son was in chemotherapy. She wore a simple navy dress. She drank bad coffee. She left after 40 minutes. Colette walked her to the door and said, "I am glad you came." Wren said, "I am glad you asked." Renata lost her spot on the hospitality committee in March. A new chairwoman was appointed. Renata was told her help with the Easter programs was no longer needed this year. They had enough volunteers. The email was signed with a warm blessing. Renata read it in her living room. She set her phone down beside the photograph of Harold. She said nothing aloud. The house was very quiet. Renata drove past the Coulter Lentz house one Sunday in April. She did not stop. She did not slow. She noticed the porch light was on. She noticed a stroller folded on the porch. She saw no one. She drove another 2 blocks and pulled over in front of a stranger's house. Arnuffer cries and sat with her hands on the wheel. A woman walking a dog looked at her. Renata started the car again and drove home. It was a 40-minute drive. The baby turned 1 in June. The birthday party was small. 8 adults, 2 children. Desmond Ahern brought a card with a hand-drawn microphone and a $20 bill inside. He said, "Your father would have made a terrible speech right now." Wren laughed. "My father would have said 1 sentence and then eaten cake." Desmond nodded. He stayed for an hour. He did not ask about Amaro's mother. That same Saturday, Renata sat alone at her dining table with a cupcake from the grocery store and a single candle. She lit the candle. She did not sing. She did not blow it out. She let it burn down. The wax pooled on the plate. She watched it pool. When the flame went out, she scraped the wax into the trash and washed the plate and did not eat the cupcake. Renata's cousin Maura called her in July. Maura said, "You need to say the name." Maura said, "The real name." Renata said, "I cannot." Maura said, "Then this ends where it is." Renata did not answer. Maura waited. Then Maura said, "I am sorry," and ended the call. Renata sat in her kitchen afterward. She said the name aloud once, quietly, to the empty room. She did not say it a second time. In August, Renata tried once more. She drove to the Coulter Lentz house Saturday morning. She rang the bell. Amaro answered. He did not open the screen door. He said, "Mom, you cannot be here." He said, "I love you. That is why you cannot be here." She asked if she could see the baby just once. Amaro said no, not yet. He closed the door gently. She stood on the porch a minute before walking back to her car. Wren watched from the kitchen window. She did not step out. The baby was awake in her arms, pulling a loose thread from her cardigan. He did not see his grandmother. His grandmother did not see him. Wren did not point her out. She did not lift him so he could be seen. She simply held him and watched the car pull away from the curb. Then she turned back into the kitchen and put on the kettle. A month later, Renata sent a final letter. 5 lines. She said she would stop writing. She said she hoped one day to know her grandson by his real name. She said she was learning what that meant. She apologized for the programs. She did not ask for a reply. Wren opened the envelope. She read it. She put it into the manila folder. She did not write back. She made dinner. Renata did not write again. She kept her word. She sold the piano that fall to a dealer who took it away on a Tuesday. She kept Harold's photograph. She moved it to the top of her bedroom dresser. The first thing she saw in the morning. She did not replace the piano. The rectangle on the floor where it had stood was darker than the rest of the carpet. Wren's son learned his name by then. He said it with the cadence of a person too young to know what names do. He pointed to himself and said it when someone asked. He pointed to Wren and said a word for her too. He pointed to Amaro and said another. He had no word yet for the grandmother he had never met. No one corrected that. It was not a word he needed. Colette Mirren retired from teaching that spring. She moved out of the parish. Before she left, she mailed Wren a small padded envelope. Inside was a copy of one of the original gold foil programs and a handwritten card. The card said, "Keep this. People will tell you it is better to let things go. Sometimes it is not." Wren kept the card in her nightstand drawer. Wren took the baby to the library on her Saturday shifts. He sat on a small rug in the children's section while she worked. The children's librarian learned his name. Patrons learned his name. A retired teacher learned his name and told Wren it was a lovely name. Wren did not thank her for calling it lovely. She thanked her for calling it anything at all. That was the difference. Renata kept a calendar by her bedroom dresser. She wrote the baby's birthday on the calendar every year in the same pen. She did not send a card. She did not send a gift. She wrote the date in blue ink and crossed it out at the end of the day with a single line. She did this for 3 years. The calendar pages built up in a drawer. No one ever saw them. Amaro visited his mother once a year in the quiet middle of November. He did not bring Wren or the baby. They had an hour-long lunch at a restaurant she had picked. He listened more than he spoke. She asked about work. He told her. She asked about Wren by name. He answered briefly. She did not ask to see the baby. Amaro did not offer. He paid the check, kissed her on the cheek, and drove home. In the 5th year, Wren bought a small house with Amaro on a quiet street with a magnolia tree in the front yard. They moved on a Saturday. The baby carried a stuffed bear almost as tall as he was. The moving truck pulled away at noon. Wren stood at the new kitchen window and watched a neighbor wave from across the street. She waved back. She unpacked the notebook first. Renata learned about the move from Amaro 6 months later. She did not ask for the address. He did not offer it. She told her neighbor she was proud of them. The neighbor nodded politely. Renata stopped speaking about them at coffee hour. She still attended services. She sat in the back pew. She no longer stood at the table with the programs. She lit a candle in the side chapel every Sunday. She did not say a name aloud. One evening in the new house, Wren found the manila folder in a box labeled office. She carried it to the back steps. She did not open it. She held it flat on her lap. The sky was violet. Amaro came out with 2 mugs of tea. He said, "You ever going to throw that out?" She said, "No." He said, "Why not?" She said, "Because it stopped happening. I want to remember what it looks like when something stops." That same evening, 40 miles away, Renata was in her kitchen. The kettle she had scorched years ago was still on her stove. She had never replaced it. The ring on the base had faded into the metal. She did not notice it anymore. She made a pot of tea. She drank half of it. Then she poured the rest down the sink. She did not know why. In the new house, the boy turned 4. The party was in the backyard. 12 adults, 4 children. Desmond Ahern stood by the fence with a beer and told the boy his grandfather would have been proud of the cake. The boy nodded seriously. He did not ask who his grandfather was. He already knew. Wren had shown him pictures of both of them the year before. His father's father. Her own. That night, Wren sat on the back steps alone after everyone had gone. Amaro was putting the boy to bed. The folder was not with her tonight. It was inside, back in its drawer. She held a mug of cooling tea. She thought about her father's line about quiet moves. She thought about the slip of paper folded in her wallet the afternoon of the birth certificate. It was still in her wallet. The slip said two things in two hands. Her father's handwriting said Coulter. Her own said the first name she had chosen. Below both, a third line she had added the night of the christening. It said, "Quiet moves only." She read it once and folded it back into the leather. The kitchen behind her glowed warm. Her son was asleep. Her husband was beside him. The gold foil programs were filed in a drawer she did not open anymore.